In this video, we're working on how to play Miles's 7 Steps to Heaven as a solo pianist. It's going to be an interesting video. I posted a recording of myself on the Jazz Pianist group and got some feedback from the other pianists, and they basically gave me direction on how to present this content. I'm going to play pieces of that recording for you, and we're going to take a look at the sheet music that I've created, which is an entire arrangement for the solo pianist. And one of the suggestions that I received was to break 7 Steps to Heaven down into 7 steps. I will be discussing my sheet music and the arrangement that I put together so that you can download it and learn it, but I'm also going to be talking about soloing over this tune, and I think that's one of the things you're going to want to stick around for. I will post a link to the sheet music a little bit later on in this video. It's going to be free to download, so stick around for that. And by the way, my name is Paul Tobey from jazzmental.com. Thanks for joining me for another one of my tutorials. Let's dive right in and tackle the 7 steps. Step 1 in learning 7 Steps to Heaven as a solo pianist means really getting the feel right. We're just going to listen through the tune, and then we're going to learn the introduction and what that means to setting the feel of the tune. Let's just listen to the head section. And as you can hear, it's going to go into the solo section. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now that we've heard the tune and we can tell that it's pretty fast swing, I think the best way to approach it is to learn the introduction that I've written out. First thing I would suggest in getting the feel right is to play that left hand where you've got the and of 4, then you've got the and of 2, and then again the and of 4. But you're holding down that root note with your left finger. So it's... If we were to count through that, it would be 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, fitting the right hand in around that means playing on the and of 2 here, and then on beat 3. So just play that first bar. So it's really all about the left hand kind of keeping time. Like you're swapping notes. Like that. Now I know that we've got a half note here, and then we've got an eighth note here and a half note. Those start on the same beat. It's just that sometimes you're making it short and sometimes long. It's your choice which one you want to do. You could do the first one. The way that it's written is the first one is long. It's like a half note. And then the second one is short. Now, obviously, this is swing, and you're really just going to have to feel that. It's like 2 and 4 are the back beats, but the eighth notes are really happening on the off beats. If you played the first one short on the 3rd of the beat, and then the second one, which is the E flat 13, long on the 3rd of the beat, it would sound like this. So it's a bit of a different sound. You could play them both long as well. And this is what it means to play solo piano. You're basically changing up what the original was, putting in different feel and different beats to kind of keep the rhythm going, because you don't have a bass player and you don't have a drummer. Step 2 is to learn the left-hand bass line. Now the good news here is it's an AABA structure, which means that you really only need to learn 2 8-bar sections. Make sure that you're starting to think in swing, so these notes would be a little more accented. the off beats, so beat 2 and beat 4. It's a good idea to play that slowly the first time and then pick up speed as you learn it. Now, it's a good walking bass line. I don't think you should change it unless you're really comfortable with what's written here. So just play it as is, because this is typically how a bass player would play over these types of changes. So a couple things that are interesting about this, you'll notice that we've got 2 eighth notes here at the end of bar 9, 10, 11, bar 12, right? This is bar 12 here. That's something that a bass player would do. So it's like a little skipping beat. It's almost like this, where you've got a dotted quarter and a 16th. It's an added little accent to make it feel more like swing. After you learn that bass line and you're comfortable with it, especially at a faster speed, then move on to step 3. And that's putting the right hand together with the left hand. So the right hand is playing these rootless block chords. You've got F major 7, B flat 7. And again, we're putting in some extensions on these chords. For example, the B flat 7 has a 9th in it. It's important to add those extensions because it obviously gives the chords more depth and a better jazz flavor. Once you've got those voicings together, what you want to do is start putting the right hand and the left hand together. Notice that the left hand here is playing on the and of 4. So the left hand and right hand are not playing together at that point. The left hand and the right hand do play together here on this and of 4. And then the left hand continues by getting us back to the F by going from C to E flat to E natural back to F. Keep in mind that this section is played an octave below what is written. So one more time. Okay, and play that as many times as it takes. As soon as you get comfortable with it at slow speeds, then obviously start to speed it up. But please don't speed it up until you actually have all the correct voicings and correct bass line under your fingers. Okay, let's move on to step 4. That means learning the bridge. Now, the interesting thing about the bridge is the bass line is going to be doing kind of a combination between walking and just playing the chord. So this is a bit of a cheat here. And what you want to do is just play 1, 5, and then the third of the chord. Because these chords are going up in succession, C to D to E to F. And so it makes it easier rather than trying to figure out bass lines through that. And it does sound good. And it does it on the E flat, and then on the G flat, and then the G minor 11th, and back to the original A section. So again, the bridge obviously is starting here, and then you're back to the A section down here. So it's only 8 bars. So learning that bass line is going to be really important, because the right hand, when you try to match it with that left hand, is a little bit tricky. Now notice the right hand is playing a melody note, and then it's comping for itself with the lower fingers. So the top note is held while the bottom notes are added. That makes sense? Okay, now, again, step 4, because there's only 2 sections, step 4 is to really work the bridge over And again, play it slowly at first and fit everything together. Make sure you've got all the right notes at a slow speed, and then you can speed it up. Okay? It's going to take you a while to get that because there is a lot happening in the right hand. The left hand is fairly simple, playing those tenths. So that's going to make it easier. But again, the right hand has a lot going on. It's not just playing melody notes, but it's playing chords. It's comping for itself. All right, let's talk about step 5. And that is, if you're going to play this tune properly as a solo pianist, you're going to have to solo over it. So let's talk about how that's going to go down. Let's first listen to the solo break between the head and the solo section and a little bit of the solo section, just so we can wrap our heads around what needs to happen. Let's listen. Let's stop it there. I don't want to play the entire solo section for you, but there's a couple of things to keep in mind. One, you have to fill the space between the head section and the solo section. There's a break there that you have to fill. And then you can probably hear that there was a left-hand bass running throughout the entire improvisation. Let's refer to the sheet music. Typically, if you ended on 1 here, and this would be like an F major 7, there'd be like this 2-bar solo break. And what I did to fill that was I played some kind of blues lick. So the flat 3 of a blues scale is like A flat, and then I double stopped it with these 2 notes on the outside. And the reason why I did that is just from an artistic perspective. You don't want to just launch into lines. You could play something like this, but I felt it was, I guess, in the moment more appropriate to play a blues type thing. And then, of course, we're right into the solo. And we're basically soloing over the same chords as the head. This would be the A section repeated twice, and then the bridge starts down here at B section, and then it gets back to the A section off the page down there. I thought it would be easier to just play the same bass line as was in the head sections, because you had to learn it once for the head section. Now learn it again, another bass line didn't really make a lot of sense. So, because it's difficult to do these bass lines. So once you learn the first bass line, it makes a lot of sense just to keep going with it rather than have to learn a new one. The trick, of course, is trying to keep that bass line going while you're soloing. And I think it's important at this speed, especially if you're going to play it up tempo, that the right hand stick to notes that are close to each other. For example, scales, rather than jumping around big chords like this. And while that's a great idea, if you don't have the dexterity to reach long distances with your fingers, and by the way, the further you reach with your fingers, the further they're spread out, the harder it is to play at a fast speed. So if you keep it pretty close, I would also point out from a soloing perspective that sticking to the harmony of the changes, for example, F major 7, B flat 7, E half diminished 7, A 7, connect those chords together. So starting with F major 7, going to B flat 7, and then maybe come down the E half diminished 7th chord, and then A 7. I think because there's more chords, 2 chords per bar, it makes it easier to solo because if you catch those chords, it automatically sounds like a better solo than just running lines. Let's move on to step number 6. And if you grasp this part of it, it will make your solo piano improvisation sound a lot more impressive, and that is phrasing. And by phrasing, I basically mean think of your solo as a conversation, and you want to break it up into manageable phrases. Smaller sentences versus long drawn out lines. It's a lot easier to do it that way, plus it gives the audience a break between ideas. If we were to apply short phrasing to the first part of this solo, it might sound something like this. Now, of course, the better you get at improvisation, the longer the phrasing can be. For example, okay, that was a couple of longer phrases versus shorter phrases. And in order to do that, of course, you'll need more of the bebop language in your arsenal. And the second thing I wanted to say about phrasing is as you're making up these phrases and sentences, put in a little rhythmic variety and often repeat those ideas. So let's say we made a couple of smaller phrases, but those phrases were somewhat the same in terms of their rhythm. For example, here would be our first phrase. And then our next phrase would be. So there was a couple of similar ideas in there, like call and answer. That makes it interesting in your solos. And then, of course, you've got the idea of syncopation. That's where notes don't necessarily start or end on the beat. Okay, so basically the notes are going across the beat like this. Okay, that's what we call syncopation. So those make great rhythmic ideas. I'm going to get to step number 7, and I'm also going to put a link to the sheet music that you see on your screen, which is the arrangement that I've put together. But before I do both of those things, I wanted to give you the opportunity to just take a second, go down, hit the thumbs up button. It really helps us here at the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to weigh in on the discussion of how you solo over fast swing tunes like this, please put your comments below. And finally, step number 7 is not a technical idea. It has nothing to do with harmonies or rhythms and all of the things that we talked about today, running bass lines and syncopation and all those things. It's more of a, it's not what you do, but how you do it kind of idea. And I'm going to suggest to you that when you play tunes like this and you learn them, even at a slow speed, what you want to do is record yourself and listen back. Just like we've been listening to my recording throughout, it's very important to hear yourself play. Only then can you really assess your progress in comparison to other musicians that you hear. I think if we just listen to ourselves play in the moment, we're thinking too much about the process and not enough about the music that comes as a result of that process. So you get bogged down in all the technical aspects and you're not really listening. If you recorded yourself, then you could listen back and make tiny changes and shifts in direction because you don't like what you're hearing. And of course, if you do like what you're hearing, that gives you a lot of intrinsic motivation to progress even faster. All right, so step number 7, record yourself. Take it from me. It's a great idea. I hope you got a lot out of that. I want to thank all of the people that weighed in on the Jazz Pianist group and let me know what they were looking to get out of this tutorial so that it can help us all. I really appreciate it. I'm going to post a link to the sheet music arrangement that you've been seeing on your screen throughout this tutorial. Let me put that link up here in the corner, but it's also in the description below if for any reason that link does not appear. We did talk quite a bit about soloing in this video, but it might surprise you to learn that most jazz pianists absolutely fail at improvising. And there are very good reasons for that, and I put them in a very popular video of late. You might want to check that video out right here.